Welcome back to EftelHistory, where today we're once again in the fairytale forest and we're covering another of the original 10 fairy tales, Mother Holle. Without further ado, let's dive in this well. Some of you might already be familiar with the tale itself, but let's first look how it's here portrayed in the fairytale forest. We have an old well with a tiny roof on top of it. On the roof are two weather vanes in the shape of a witch flying on a broom. If you look inside the well, we can see the story of Mother Holle being told via illustrations made by Anton Pieck that are projected into the well. More of that further on. A little house with two doors is situated next to the well. Around each door you can see three faces in the stonework. And yes, I love them. They're great. In front of the house is a tiny walled garden. And on top of the wall is a bucket with an old carpet beater in it. If you call into it, the mechanisms are triggered. The rooster on top of the house begins to crow. The shutters of the window on the top floor open, and out comes an old lady, carrying a pillow, Mother Holle. She asks in Dutch, "Shall I let it snow?" As she starts to fluff the pillow. Suddenly, it starts to snow around her. Afterwards, she goes back into the house, and the shutters close again. Mother Holle is an existing fairy tale, but not a particularly well-known one. Also known as Vrouw Holle, or Old Mother Frost, it was one of the fairy tales collected in the famous book of the Brothers Grimm. Luckily for us, the well here itself tells the Efteling tradition of the story. So, let's dive in.
Zonk naar beneden en komt
There once was a widow who had two daughters. Rita, industrious and nice, and Mina, lazy and selfish. However, the widow favored Mina and let Rita do all the work in the house. One day, while spinning thread, Rita let a spindle drop into the well. Terrified of what would happen if she returned home without the spindle, she desperately jumped into the well. She sank to the bottom, and to her surprise, appeared to be in a completely different world. Then she heard voices. "Please, take us out. We are done." Rita followed the voices to an oven full of freshly baked loaves of bread. Rita quickly took out the loaves, but when she turned around, an old lady stood in her path. "You are a hard-working girl. Would you like to work for me?" Rita said yes, and from that day she worked for Mother Holle. She scrubbed the house clean and fluffed the pillows so hard that back on earth it caused plenty of snowfall. Still, after a while, Rita became homesick and wanted to return to her home. She said her thanks and farewell to Mother Holle, and when she left the home, she was covered in gold as a reward. That is how Rita returned home. But when Mina saw this, she instantly became jealous. She also jumped into the well, and when she landed into the world, she also heard voices. Big red apples on an old tree who were saying, "Pluck us, please, we are ripe." However, Mina ignored the apples, going straight to Mother Holle to work for her. Although, as she was quite lazy, she ended up just hanging around. This made Mother Holle furious, and when Mina said goodbye, instead as a reward, she was covered in black pitch. Black as the night she returned home. Nobody recognized her but the rooster, who crowed, "Kikerikir, kikerikir, the black Mina is once again here." So now that the portrayal of the fairy tale makes a bit more sense, let's look at the history of it here in the fairy tale forest, beginning with the well itself. Once again, Anton Pieck made several designs for the well. Interestingly enough, the rooster of the fairy tale was placed on top of the well in most of his drawings. Peter Reinders thought of the technique of displaying the fairy tale with a special slide projector, and Henk Knuyves realized it, using Reinders' voice for narration. These days, of course, it's done by digital beamer, and the old slide projector can be seen in the Wonder Depot of the Efteling Museum. Furthermore, in the 70s, Peter Reinders' voice was changed to that of Wietke van Dort. The House of Mother Holle has its own history, and it's actually older than the Efteling itself, built in 1945. In the immediate post-war period, it was inhabited by the familie Klein. Eventually it was obtained by the Efteling, and it was redesigned to fit the Fairytale Forest theme and used as a souvenir shop. Later on, it became the Fairytale Museum. But more history of this building and the Fairytale Museum we will cover in a future period, which will cover the years from 1963 to 2006. The only thing that you have to know about that period is that one of the fairytale objects that was displayed in the Fairytale Museum was actually the spindle that Rita dropped into the well. By initiative of Robert Jaap Jansen in 2006, the house was again repurposed now to actually be the House of Mother Holle. All designs of Anton Pieck were used to redesign the house. Funny-faced stones were added around the doors, the rooster was finally added on top of the house, and a Mother Holle animatronic was added in the attic. Its looks based on Anton Pieck's designs, of course, but its movements modelled by Robert Jaap's own mother. Robert Jaap Jansen is also the voice of Mother Holle, and you can still hear his voice today asking, Unfortunately, because the building itself was already quite old, it eventually had to sadly be demolished. This happened on December 9th, 2019, with the intent to rebuild it the very next year. However, as you are all aware, in 2020 the coronavirus pandemic struck, and this severely delayed the rebuilding. And so, for 2.5 years, the old building grounds were left semi-abandoned, slowly filling up with weeds even. Luckily, in April 2022, the Efteling finally started rebuilding the house. Now, the new house is almost the same as the old house, with some minor changes to comply with building regulations and, make it more structurally sound. The last change, for now, happened last January in 2023, where there was extra detail added to the doors in the house. Under each door was left a trill, one of gold, one of pitch, in reference to the two sisters, Rita and Mina. Now let's cover some fun facts about the fairy tale. Once in a while, you call for Mother Holle, the rooster cries, the shutters open, forward comes Mother Holle. Then she stops, she laughs. Then some funny music is heard. This is a joke version of the normal attraction that was around from when she was added until 2011. And probably removed because it was too cruel for little children. But when it was rebuilt in 2022, it was re-added. So now, once again, be prepared. Once in a while, be fooled. As one of the oldest fairy tales in the park, Mother Holle can also be seen outside of her attraction. The story is in many of the Efteling's books and CDs, and it was also one of the episodes of the series Sprookjes, or Fairytale movies, which was made in cooperation and filmed in the Efteling. In this episode, Mother Holle's well can be seen, but the other world was shot at the Lavela, another part of the park. There was also a theatre production during the Winter Efteling of 2006-2011, where a few fairy tale characters danced together with park mascot Madoos. And at the end, Mother Holle would let it snow, with some help of some snow machines that were hidden in the podium. This was around the same time when the Mother Holle figure was added to the attraction, which uses the same type of foam snow effects as in display. Speaking of the Winter Efteling, every year during the winter, all the fairy tales around the Fairytale Forest gets a tiny update to be more seasonal. The Fairytale Forest entry sign is one of them. During the winter, it gets covered in snow, and who else but Mother Holle to be causing that snow on top. Also, the other side of Mother Holle's house is visible in both versions of the sign. For her wintry update, Mother Holle's well and home are both covered in reeds. This is the most common wintry decoration, but usually the reeds are designed with the attraction's theme in mind. For example, I forgot this in my last video, but the parrot from the Naughty Princess gets a wreath made from peanuts. Mother Holle, Rita and Mina are also very rare live entertainment characters you can meet in the Fairytale Forest. With Rita having golden hair and Mina having peach over her shoulders. Finally, there's the weather vane in the shape of a witch on a broom on top of the well of Mother Holle. This witch actually became part of the coat of arms of the Efteling and is visible in a few spots in the park. And on all the tail sides of the gold pooping donkey coins. She is also one of the 10 figures you can get on the head sides of the coin. And that is everything about Mother Holle. That's 2 of the original 10 fairy tales done. And imagine, the next time it snows, it might be Mother Holle fluffing her pillow. See you all next time.